Picture this moment. You're a young quarterback standing in a room watching name after name get called in the NFL draft. Your phone sits silent while other players celebrate their dreams coming true. 6 quarterbacks have already been picked, and you're still waiting. This isn't just any story about waiting your turn. This is the story of how the player nobody wanted became the greatest quarterback who ever lived. Tom Brady's journey began not on the football field, but as a 4-year-old kid sitting in the end zone at Candlestick Park. His dad had brought him to watch the San Francisco 49ers play the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC Championship game. That day, something magical happened. Young Tom watched as Joe Montana threw the ball and Dwight Clark made an incredible catch that would become known as the catch, one of the most famous plays in football history. In that moment, watching his hometown team win in such dramatic fashion, Tom fell completely in love with football. He wanted to be Joe Montana. He wanted to be the guy making those impossible throws when everything was on the line. But here's the thing about dreams. Sometimes the path to achieving them looks nothing like what you imagined. Tom Brady wasn't some natural athletic wonder kid who dominated from day one. Actually, he didn't even play football until his freshman year of high school. And when he finally did join the team, he was a backup quarterback on a team that went 0-8 for the entire season. They didn't score a single touchdown all year, and Tom wasn't considered good enough to play even one offensive snap at quarterback. Can you imagine? The future greatest quarterback of all time couldn't even get on the field for a team that never scored a touchdown. The only reason Tom even got to play quarterback his sophomore year was because the freshman quarterback from the previous year decided to quit football altogether. Tom remembers thinking, "Well, I guess I'm going to play now." He always had a decent arm, nothing spectacular, but he was starting to understand the game in a way that went beyond just physical ability. By the time he was a senior in high school, his dad was making videotapes of his games, hoping colleges might show some interest. They'd sit there introducing Tom on these tapes, listing all his plays from the previous season, practically begging for someone to give him a chance. When the University of Michigan finally opened its doors to Tom, he wasn't walking in as some celebrated recruit. There were 7 quarterbacks on the depth chart when he arrived. 7. Scott Dreisbach was a year ahead of him, Brian Grease was a year ahead of that, and Jason Carr was entering his 5th year. There was also Scott Loeffler, this highly recruited quarterback from Ohio that everyone was excited about. Tom remembers his first day of practice, looking around at all these guys and thinking to himself, "Man, I'm better than these guys." Of course, he wasn't actually better at that point, but that attitude, that unwavering belief in himself, even when the evidence suggested otherwise, that's what would carry him through everything that was about to come. By his sophomore season, Tom was pushing Brian Grease hard for the starting job. They were neck and neck, completely even in the coach's eyes. But Michigan's head coach, Lloyd Carr, had a philosophy. When there's a tie, the upperclassman gets the job. Tom was furious about this. He actually thought about transferring, maybe going back home to California to play there. He was so frustrated that he went to the coaching staff and told them he was thinking about leaving. But then something shifted in him. The next day, he walked into the coach's office, sat down right in front of the desk, and said something that would define his entire career. "Coach, I'm not going to leave, and I'm going to prove to you that I'm the best quarterback." The coach could see it in Tom's eyes. This wasn't just talk. This kid had a goal in mind, and nothing was going to stop him from achieving it. In his junior year, Tom finally became the starter and won 10 of his final 11 games. You'd think that would secure his position for his senior year, right? Wrong. Enter Drew Henson, the golden boy of Michigan high school football. If you enjoy this soothing story, please like the video, subscribe to NFL Legends YouTube channel, and ring the notification bell. Drew Henson wasn't just good at football, he was incredible at everything. He was faster than Tom, stronger, quicker, more elusive, and had a better arm. The kid had "can't miss" written all over him. He was the most highly touted athlete to come to Michigan in anyone's memory. He was so good that he'd been drafted by the New York Yankees to play baseball while still in high school, and he planned to play both sports at Michigan. Lloyd Carr, the head coach, once said he'd never been around a guy with this much potential. So when Tom's senior year started, instead of being the clear starter after his successful junior season, he found himself in a quarterback competition with a sophomore. Coach Carr came up with what he thought was a fair solution. Tom would start the games, Drew would play the second quarter, and then they'd decide who would play the rest based on who was performing better. They called it going with the hot hand. Can you imagine being Tom Brady in this situation? You're the senior, the captain, you won 10 games the previous year, and now you have to share your position with a sophomore? The NFL scouts were already buzzing about this situation. One director of player personnel said he understood why Michigan kept giving Henson opportunities. His upside was so much higher than Tom Brady's. But then he added something interesting. If Michigan didn't play Henson, they had a problem because Henson would leave to play baseball full-time. Tom was caught in the middle of this political situation, but he handled it with incredible maturity. Any other player might have complained publicly or caused problems in the locker room, but Tom just kept working, kept preparing, kept believing his time would come. The turning point came during a game against Michigan State. Michigan fell behind by 17 points with Henson playing quarterback. They brought Tom in to try to save the game. In just 18 minutes, Tom threw for 241 yards and nearly brought Michigan all the way back. After that performance and another 307-yard game the following week, Coach Carr finally made his decision. Tom Brady would be the quarterback and Drew Henson would be the backup. With the quarterback controversy finally settled, Tom could focus on what he did best, winning games when it mattered most. Against Penn State, Michigan was down by 10 points in the final minutes. Tom led them back for the victory, and the legend of the comeback kid was born. But his finest moment in college came in the Orange Bowl, his last game as a Michigan Wolverine. It was like something out of a movie. Michigan fell behind 14-0, and Tom brought them back to tie it 14-all. They fell behind again, 28-14, and again Tom orchestrated a comeback to make it 28-all. The game went to overtime, and Tom executed a perfect bootleg play, rolling out and finding his tight end Sean Thompson for a touchdown. Alabama scored to make it 35-34 but missed the extra point, and Michigan won in overtime. Tom's coach later said it was as fine a performance at quarterback as anybody had ever had at Michigan. You would think after a performance like that, after all those comebacks, after proving himself over and over again, NFL teams would be lining up to draft Tom Brady. But that's not how this story goes. As the 2000 NFL draft approached, Tom had exactly one phone call from an NFL team. One. Bobby Greer from the New England Patriots called and mentioned they might draft a quarterback late. Tom's college coach told Bobby something prophetic: "I guarantee you will never regret drafting Tom Brady." But the draft reports on Tom were brutal. They said he had poor build, was skinny, lacked great physical stature and strength, lacked mobility and ability to avoid the rush, lacked a really strong arm, couldn't drive the ball downfield, didn't throw a really tight spiral, was a system-type player who could get exposed if forced to ad-lib, and got knocked down easily. Reading those scouting reports now seems almost laughable. They were describing someone who would go on to win more Super Bowls than any quarterback in history. But at the time, these reports carried weight. At the NFL Combine, where college players showcase their skills for pro scouts, Tom looked terrible by traditional measurements. He ran a 5.2-second 40-yard dash, one of the slowest times for a quarterback at the Combine. He looked gangly and skinny, like he'd never seen a weight room. His arm strength was just okay compared to other quarterbacks who could really fire the ball. The San Francisco 49ers, Tom's hometown team, the team he'd grown up dreaming of playing for, had a chance to draft him. They knew all about Tom. He was from a local high school just up the street. They even held a special local combine in San Francisco where kids from nearby colleges and high schools could work out for them. Tom attended, hoping to impress his childhood team. But even there, in front of the team he'd loved his whole life, Tom did nothing that made them think they needed to draft him. In 32 years of scouting, they'd evaluated 576 quarterbacks. Tom Brady ranked dead last, number 576, in athletic ability. Instead of Tom Brady, the 49ers drafted Giovanni Carmazzi, a quarterback from Hofstra University. The 49ers coaches were excited about Carmazzi, calling him probably the best quarterback in the draft as far as athletic ability. He was fast, athletic, strong, smart. Everything Tom Brady supposedly wasn't. Meanwhile, Tom's family, who had been 49ers season ticket holders for 25 years, took it personally. They were hurt that their team had passed on their son. Draft day itself was torture for Tom and his family. They'd been led to believe he would go in the second round, or at least the third. Tom's parents and sisters gathered at their house to celebrate what should have been one of the happiest days of his life. But as the draft progressed, quarterback after quarterback was selected, and Tom's name wasn't called. Chad Pennington went in the first round to the New York Jets. In the third round, 2 more quarterbacks were selected, Chris Redmond to the Baltimore Ravens and Giovanni Carmazzi to the 49ers. By the fourth round, the tension in the Brady house was unbearable. Tom couldn't stand sitting there anymore, watching other players' dreams come true while his phone stayed silent. At the beginning of the 6th round, he grabbed a baseball bat and walked out of the house, telling his parents he needed to get away. He didn't want to sit around getting his hopes up only to be disappointed again. His parents watched their son walk up the street carrying that bat, trying to distract himself from what was becoming one of the worst days of his life. Tom remembers taking a walk around the block with his mom and dad, all of them trying to process what was happening. Why was nobody picking him? What was wrong with him that 198 other players were considered better? It was devastating. Tom gets emotional even now when he talks about that day, remembering how his parents were right there with him, feeling every bit of disappointment he felt, supporting him through one of the darkest moments of his young life. Finally, with the 199th pick in the 6th round, the New England Patriots called. Tom was so relieved he jokes that his first thought was, "Thank God, I don't have to be an insurance salesman." The Patriots had already taken 5 players before Tom, guys who would mostly amount to nothing in the NFL. But with their 6th pick, they took a chance on the skinny quarterback from Michigan. The Patriots coaches had noticed something others had missed. They saw how Tom had handled the difficult situation with Drew Henson, how he'd come into games and rescued Michigan time and time again, how he performed in the biggest moments against the best competition. When Tom arrived in New England as a rookie, he made some typical rookie mistakes. The coaches would yell at him to run plays again when he messed up. But even as a rookie, Tom had veteran confidence. He tells a story about meeting the team owner, Robert Kraft, for the first time. This skinny rookie walked up to one of the most powerful men in sports and introduced himself. When Kraft said, "I know who you are. You're our 6th-round draft choice," Tom looked him straight in the eye and said, "That's right, and I'm the best decision this organization has ever made." 2 weeks into training camp, before he'd even made the team, Tom called his agent and said he wanted to buy a house. His agent thought he was crazy, telling him to make the team first. Tom's response? "Yeah, I'm going to make the team. Don't worry about that. Let's just make sure we get a good interest rate." That's the kind of confidence Tom had, even when he was 4th on the quarterback depth chart. The Patriots actually only kept Tom on the roster his rookie year because they didn't want to risk losing him to another team. He never played that season, and keeping a 4th quarterback was essentially wasting a roster spot. But something about Tom made them hold on. Meanwhile, remember Giovanni Carmazzi, the athletic quarterback the 49ers had drafted instead of Tom? His NFL career started falling apart almost immediately. In his first preseason game, ironically against the Patriots and Tom Brady, the stage seemed too big for him, the lights were too bright. After Joe Montana was inducted into the Hall of Fame, the 49ers were hoping Carmazzi might be the next great San Francisco quarterback. But in that preseason game, he looked overwhelmed and never recovered. Doubt crept in, and Carmazzi never appeared in a regular season game. He was released after 2 seasons. Tom spent his entire rookie season watching and learning. He studied the game like his life depended on it. Remember Drew Henson, the golden boy who had challenged Tom for the starting job at Michigan? He had decided to leave college early to play baseball full-time for the Yankees. His Major League Baseball career lasted just 9 at-bats. He went 1 for 9 and realized he couldn't hit a Major League curveball. So Henson decided to return to football. And in 2004, he got his chance with the Dallas Cowboys, starting on Thanksgiving Day. The Cowboys scored on their first drive to go up 7-0, but then Henson threw an interception that was returned for a touchdown. At halftime, the coach pulled him from the game. Henson's window of opportunity had opened and closed on the same day. Meanwhile, Tom was about to get his own opportunity. In 2001, his second season, Tom had beaten out veteran Damon Huard for the backup quarterback position. He'd actually had a better preseason than the starter Drew Bledsoe, but the Patriots stuck with their established veteran. Then, in the second game of the season, Jets linebacker Mo Lewis delivered a devastating hit on Bledsoe that would change NFL history. Bledsoe was seriously injured, and Tom Brady became the starting quarterback of the New England Patriots. Tom's best friend from college knew immediately what would happen. He said there was no way Tom was giving that job back to Drew, and he was right. Tom started winning games immediately. He beat Peyton Manning and the Indianapolis Colts twice that season, leading the Patriots to the AFC East title. In the playoffs, the famous tuck rule game happened. Tom's former Michigan teammate Charles Woodson hit him and caused what looked like a fumble, but the referees ruled it an incomplete pass. If not for that call, the Patriots would have lost. Instead, Tom led them to victory in the snow. After upsetting the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Patriots made it to the Super Bowl. With the score tied late in the game, most people expected New England to run out the clock and play for overtime. The announcers were saying that's what they should do, just play it safe. But the Patriots had a different idea. They decided to gamble on pick number 199. With 41 seconds left and no timeouts, Tom calmly led the Patriots down the field, completing pass after pass to set up the winning field goal. The player nobody wanted had just won the Super Bowl and was named Super Bowl MVP. That was just the beginning. In 2003, Tom led the Patriots to another Super Bowl victory with another last-minute drive, earning another Super Bowl MVP award. In 2004, he became the youngest quarterback ever to win 3 Super Bowl titles. Each time it seemed like Tom was proving something to all those teams that had passed on him, to all those scouts who said he wasn't good enough. While Tom was winning Super Bowls, what happened to the 6 quarterbacks drafted ahead of him? Chad Pennington, the first quarterback taken, had a decent career with the New York Jets, but was constantly battling injuries. He had 4 shoulder surgeries and could never stay healthy enough to reach his potential. Despite winning Comeback Player of the Year twice, Pennington spent most of his career wondering what might have been if his body had held up. Chris Redman, picked in the 3rd round by Baltimore, never became a starter. He was out of the league for a couple of years and ended up selling insurance, which he admits he was terrible at. He got another chance with the Patriots in 2005. They brought him in for a tryout, but even then, with Tom Brady as proof of what they could find in overlooked quarterbacks, they decided Redman wasn't good enough. Giovanni Carmazzi, the 49ers pick, never played in a regular season NFL game. Today, he lives 2 hours north of San Francisco as what he calls a yoga exercising farmer. He owns 5 goats and doesn't even own a television. He declined to be interviewed about his NFL experience, preferring to leave that chapter of his life behind. T. Martin, who had won a national championship at Tennessee after Peyton Manning left, appeared in just 3 NFL games and completed only 6 passes. He found his calling as a coach and became a wide receivers coach in college football. He says coaching was always his destiny, remembering how his own coaches had been father figures to him growing up. Spurgeon Wynn was drafted by the Cleveland Browns after completing less than 48% of his passes in college. Tom's college teammates couldn't believe it when Wynn was drafted ahead of Tom. Wynn's NFL career was brief and brutal. He was thrown into action against the 2000 Baltimore Ravens, one of the greatest defenses in NFL history, and lost 44-7. He's now an energy trader in Houston, with a son he's hoping might become a professional golfer or baseball player instead of following in his football footsteps. Mark Bulger actually had the most success of the Brady Six. He became a starting quarterback for the Saints. Louis Rams made 2 Pro Bowls and reached 1,000 completions faster than any quarterback in NFL history at that time. But even Bulger admits that when the pieces around him weren't perfect, he struggled. He needed everything to be just right to succeed, while Tom seemed to win no matter who was playing around him. By 2007, Tom had his best season yet. He set the NFL record for touchdown passes in a single season with 50. He took the Patriots to an undefeated regular season, though they lost in the Super Bowl, falling just short of perfection. People started asking Drew Henson about it. Here he was, retired at 30, while Tom Brady, the guy he was supposed to replace at Michigan, was still dominating the NFL. Henson would say he was resigned to the fact that their college days would always be intertwined, that people would always ask him about Tom Brady, and it would always be part of his story. What makes Tom's story so remarkable isn't just that he succeeded, it's how he succeeded. He wasn't the strongest, fastest, or most talented. At the NFL Combine, his measurables were terrible. His 40-yard dash time was embarrassingly slow. He looked skinny and unathletic. But Tom understood something that all those scouts and coaches missed. Football isn't played on a stopwatch or in a weight room. It's played on the field in crucial moments when the pressure is highest and everything is on the line. Tom's superpower wasn't his arm strength or his speed, it was his mind and his incredible ability to perform when it mattered most. He could read defenses better than anyone. He studied film obsessively, memorizing every tendency of every opponent. He treated every practice like it was a game, remembering how at Michigan he had to prove himself every single day just to keep his starting job. That fear of being replaced, that chip on his shoulder from being picked 199th, never went away. Even after winning multiple Super Bowls, Tom would watch film of himself and think, "Man, you're still not very fast. You've got a decent arm. You made some pretty bad reads on that play." The coaches who worked with Tom talk about his incredible work ethic. Nobody worked harder. Nobody studied more. Nobody cared more about winning. While other quarterbacks relied on their natural ability, Tom was building something different, an understanding of the game so deep that he could see things happening before they occurred. He knew where every receiver would be, where every defender was going, what the defense was trying to do, and how to beat it. Bill Belichick, the Patriots head coach who would win 6 Super Bowls with Tom, admitted they almost missed on him too. They knew about the Michigan situation with Drew Henson, and it was a red flag. Why would Michigan try to replace their senior quarterback if he was really that good? But Belichick and his staff saw something others missed. They saw how Tom responded to adversity. They saw him come into games when Michigan was losing and lead comeback after comeback. They saw him perform in the biggest games against the best competition. The Brady Six, those 6 quarterbacks drafted ahead of Tom, became a motivation that drove him throughout his career. He could name them all from memory years later. Chad Pennington, Giovanni Carmazzi, Chris Redman, T. Martin, Mark Bulger, and Spurgeon Wynn. These weren't just names to Tom, they were reminders of everyone who had doubted him, everyone who had overlooked him, everyone who thought 198 other players were better. But here's what's really interesting about Tom's story. It's not a story about revenge or proving people wrong out of spite. It's about believing in yourself when nobody else does. It's about turning rejection into motivation. Tom didn't become great to show up the teams that passed on him. He became great because he genuinely believed he could be, and he was willing to work harder than anyone else to make it happen. The scouts who evaluated Tom coming out of college weren't entirely wrong in their assessment. He really wasn't that fast. He really didn't have the strongest arm. He really wasn't the most athletic. But they missed the most important things: his intelligence, his work ethic, his leadership, his ability to perform under pressure, and most importantly, his heart. They couldn't measure determination. They couldn't quantify the will to win. They couldn't put a number on the desire to be great. Tom's former teammates talk about him with a kind of awe. Even now, after all his success, he still has that chip on his shoulder. He still feels like he needs to prove himself. He still works like he's that sixth-round pick trying to make the team. One teammate said Tom treats every Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday practice like his job is on the line, because that's how it was at Michigan. If he didn't practice well, he might not start on Saturday. The story of Tom Brady is really a story about all of us. How many times have we been told we're not good enough? How many times have we been passed over for someone who looked better on paper? How many times have we doubted ourselves because other people doubted us? Tom's journey shows us that the experts don't always know best, that the obvious choice isn't always the right choice, and that sometimes the person who wants it most, who works the hardest, who refuses to give up, is the one who succeeds. When young quarterbacks enter the NFL now, they study Tom Brady. But they don't just study his throwing motion or his footwork, they study his mentality. They study how he prepares, how he leads, how he handles pressure. They learn that being a great quarterback isn't just about physical tools, it's about mental toughness, preparation, and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. The coaches who passed on Tom have to live with that decision. Steve Mariucci, who coached the 49ers and drafted Giovanni Carmazzi instead, jokes that if he had drafted Tom Brady, he'd probably still be coaching in San Francisco. The Browns, who drafted Spurgeon Wynn, had Dwight Clark as their general manager, the same Dwight Clark who caught the pass from Joe Montana that made young Tom Brady fall in love with football. Clark had a chance to draft Tom's hero's successor, and he passed. But even the Patriots, the team that did draft Tom, admit they got lucky. If they really knew how good he was going to be, they wouldn't have waited until pick 199. They wouldn't have made him their fourth quarterback as a rookie. They wouldn't have nearly cut him. The truth is, everyone missed on Tom Brady to some degree. Everyone underestimated him. Everyone failed to see what he would become. What's remarkable is that Tom never forgot that feeling. Even after winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl, even after breaking record after record, even after becoming arguably the greatest quarterback of all time, he still remembers draft day. He still remembers walking around the block with his parents, wondering if his dream was over. He still gets emotional talking about it. That pain, that disappointment, that feeling of being unwanted, he transformed it into fuel that powered one of the greatest careers in sports history. The other members of the Brady Six have had to watch Tom's career from afar. Some have handled it with grace, like Chad Pennington, who speaks admiringly of Tom despite their rivalry. Others, like Giovanni Carmazzi, have chosen to disappear entirely, living a life completely removed from football. But all of them are forever linked to Tom Brady, forever known as the quarterbacks who were chosen before the greatest of all time. Think about how different NFL history would be if any other team had drafted Tom Brady. What if the 49ers, his hometown team, had taken him? What if he'd gone to Cleveland or Baltimore? Would he have become the same player? Would he have won 6 Super Bowls? Or was there something special about the combination of Tom Brady and the New England Patriots, about Tom and Bill Belichick, that created the perfect storm for greatness? These are questions we'll never be able to answer, but they point to something important about success. It's not just about talent, it's about fit, timing, opportunity, and preparation. Tom was talented, but more importantly, he was ready when his opportunity came. When Drew Bledsoe got injured, Tom didn't just fill in, he seized the moment and never let go. He'd been preparing for that moment his entire life, from watching Joe Montana as a kid, to fighting for his job at Michigan, to studying film as a rookie who never played. The coaches who worked with Tom talk about his unique ability to make everyone around him better. It wasn't just his physical skills, it was his presence, his confidence, his leadership. Players wanted to work harder because Tom was working harder. They wanted to be better because Tom demanded it. He set a standard that elevated everyone around him. That's not something you can measure at the combine. That's not something that shows up in college statistics. As Tom's career progressed, he kept proving the doubters wrong in new ways. When people said he was just a system quarterback who benefited from good coaching, he won with different coordinators and different teammates. When people said he couldn't win without a great defense, he put up record-breaking offensive numbers. When people said he was getting too old, he won Super Bowls in his 40s. Every criticism became motivation. Every doubt became fuel. The Tom Brady story has become legendary in NFL circles. Coaches tell it to young players who are overlooked. Scouts reference it when they're evaluating players who don't fit the traditional mold. Parents tell it to kids who are told they're not good enough. It's become more than just a football story. It's a story about perseverance, about believing in yourself when no one else does, about turning rejection into motivation. But Tom himself remains remarkably humble about his journey. He talks about being fortunate, about having great coaches and teammates, about being in the right place at the right time. He doesn't dwell on the teams that passed on him or the scouts who said he wasn't good enough. Instead, he focuses on gratitude. Gratitude for the Patriots who gave him a chance, gratitude for the coaches who believed in him, gratitude for the opportunity to play the game he loves. Still, that edge never goes away. That feeling of being overlooked, of being doubted, of having to prove himself, it's still there. Tom has said that when he watches himself play, he still sees all the flaws. He still thinks he's not fast enough, not strong enough, still making bad reads. That perfectionism, that constant drive to improve, that's what separated him from all those quarterbacks who were supposedly better. The lesson of Tom Brady isn't that everyone who's overlooked will become great. Most sixth-round picks don't become Hall of Famers. Most players who barely make the roster don't win 6 Super Bowls. Tom Brady is the exception, not the rule. But his story shows us what's possible when talent meets preparation, when opportunity meets readiness, when doubt becomes motivation rather than discouragement. Every year at the NFL Draft, when teams are making their picks, someone mentions Tom Brady. When a quarterback falls further than expected, people wonder if he might be the next Brady. When teams pass on a quarterback for seemingly minor flaws, they remember the time everyone passed on the greatest of all time. Tom Brady changed how teams think about the draft, about evaluation, about what really matters in a quarterback. The scouts who wrote those brutal evaluations of Tom weren't incompetent. They were following the conventional wisdom of what a great quarterback should look like. They were measuring the things that could be measured: height, weight, speed, arm strength. But Tom Brady proved that the most important qualities can't be measured. You can't measure heart. You can't measure determination. You can't measure the will to win. You can't measure the ability to perform when everything is on the line. In the end, the story of Pick 199 is a reminder that nobody really knows anything. The experts who are paid millions to evaluate talent missed on the greatest quarterback of all time. The coaches who pride themselves on recognizing potential didn't see what Tom Brady would become. Even the team that drafted him didn't really know what they had. They just took a chance on a kid who had shown something special in college, a kid who kept coming back, who kept fighting, who refused to give up. That's perhaps the most important lesson from Tom Brady's story. Success isn't about being the most talented or the most gifted. It's about making the most of whatever talent you have. It's about working harder than everyone else. It's about believing in yourself when no one else does. It's about turning every setback into motivation, every doubt into fuel, every rejection into determination. Tom Brady didn't become great because he was picked 199th. He became great because of how he responded to being picked 199th. Another player might have been discouraged, might have given up, might have accepted that he wasn't good enough. But Tom took that disappointment and transformed it into the driving force of his career. Every single day he woke up with something to prove. Every single day he worked like his job was on the line. Every single day he remembered what it felt like to watch 198 players get picked before him. As we reach the end of this incredible story, think about what Tom Brady represented to football fans everywhere. To Patriots fans, He was the hero who brought championship after championship to a franchise that had never won anything. To fans of other teams, he was often the villain, the guy who always seemed to win when it mattered most. But to anyone who has ever been told they weren't good enough, Tom Brady was proof that the experts can be wrong, that hard work can overcome natural talent, that determination can triumph over doubt. The Brady Six will forever be linked in football history. 6 quarterbacks drafted ahead of the greatest of all time. 6 reminders that evaluation is imperfect, that potential is hard to measure, that greatness can come from the most unexpected places. Chad Pennington, Giovanni Carmazzi, Chris Redman, T. Martin, Mark Bulger, and Spurgeon Wynn. Their names are etched in football history, not for what they accomplished, but for who was picked after them. Years from now, when people tell the story of Tom Brady, they'll still start with pick 199. They'll still talk about the skinny kid from Michigan who nobody wanted. They'll still marvel at how everyone could have been so wrong. Because that's what makes the story so powerful. It wasn't supposed to happen. Tom Brady wasn't supposed to become Tom Brady. He was supposed to be a backup, a career clipboard holder, maybe a coach someday. Instead, he became the greatest quarterback who ever lived. The next time you face rejection, remember Tom Brady on draft day. Remember him walking around the block with his parents, wondering if his dream was over. Remember him grabbing that baseball bat and walking out of the house because he couldn't stand to wait anymore. Remember the 6 quarterbacks picked ahead of him. And then remember what happened next, how he took that disappointment and turned it into determination, how he took that doubt and turned it into drive, how he took pick 199 and turned it into 6 Super Bowl rings. That's the real magic of Tom Brady's story. It's not just about football. It's about all of us who have ever been overlooked, underestimated, or told we weren't good enough. It's about taking whatever chance you get, no matter how small, and making the absolute most of it. It's about working harder than everyone else, preparing better than everyone else, and believing in yourself when no one else does. If you enjoy this soothing story, please like the video, subscribe to NFL Legends YouTube channel, and ring the notification bell. Tom Brady's journey from pick 199 to the greatest of all time isn't just a football story. It's a human story about potential, perseverance, and the power of proving everyone wrong, not out of spite or anger, but out of an unshakable belief that you belong, that you can compete, that you can be great. The kid who watched Joe Montana and dreamed of being a quarterback became something even Joe Montana couldn't have imagined. He became the proof that sometimes, just sometimes, the impossible becomes inevitable when you refuse to give up.